She joked at game night she'd never marry me again. My reply left everyone in shock. Game night at our friend's house had always been a tradition. Cards, laughter, drinks on the table. It was supposed to be harmless fun. But that night, something shifted. We were in the middle of a light-hearted round when Laura, my wife, cracked a joke that sliced deeper than she realized. With everyone watching, she smirked, leaned back in her chair, and said, "If I had to do it all over again, I'd never marry you." The room fell into a strange silence before laughter tried to patch the awkwardness. Some chuckled nervously, others exchanged glances as if waiting for my reaction. I forced a smile, but inside, it was like someone had ripped the floor from beneath me. It wasn't just the words. It was the way she said it without hesitation, almost like she meant every syllable. I watched her take a sip of wine, laughing off the tension as though she had told a harmless joke, but I couldn't brush it off. This wasn't the first time she had made little digs at me in public. Over the years, I had tolerated her subtle jabs, comments about my job, my habits, even the way I dressed. But never had she gone as far as openly suggesting our marriage was a mistake. The rest of the group tried to steer the conversation back to the game, but my thoughts kept circling that one line. I kept replaying it like a broken record. Was it really just a joke? Or was it a glimpse of how she truly felt? My chest tightened as I realized how little respect she must have had for me to humiliate me like that in front of our closest friends. I decided not to respond immediately. Instead, I sat back, observing, letting her think she had gotten away with it. But inside, I was already planning my reply, not out of spite, but out of a need to finally reclaim my dignity. For too long, I had let her words bruise me quietly. Tonight would be different. Tonight, everyone in that room would see a side of me they never expected. The game carried on, but I barely registered the moves being made. Every time Laura laughed or threw another sarcastic remark at someone else, it only reminded me of what she had said. I looked around the room. Our friends were trying hard to act normal. But the glances they exchanged told me they hadn't missed the weight of her words either. I thought back to the early days of our marriage. I had bent over backward to support her career, taking extra shifts to pay the bills while she chased her dream job. I had stood by her when things went wrong, even when she doubted herself. I remembered the small moments, packing her lunch before work, staying up late to help her finish projects, reassuring her when she felt insecure. All of it came flooding back in contrast to the careless way she had just tossed aside the value of what we had built. She had no idea of the storm that was brewing in me. She thought I'd let it slide like always. She thought my silence meant weakness, that my ability to avoid confrontation made me easy to dismiss. But she was wrong. I had reached my breaking point. At one moment during the game, Laura leaned across the table and made another jab. Something about how I was too serious and how I should lighten up. The group laughed politely, but I noticed the unease in their eyes. They knew this wasn't playful banter anymore. It was humiliation disguised as humor. That was when I decided to deliver my reply. I waited for just the right pause in the game, when everyone was relaxed again, sipping drinks and enjoying the lull. Then I set my cards down, leaned back in my chair, and looked directly at Laura. My voice was calm, steady, but it carried the weight of years of unspoken truths. "You know," I said, my eyes never leaving hers, "you're right. If I had the chance to do it all over again, I wouldn't marry you either." The words hit the table like a hammer. The laughter died instantly. Glasses froze midair. The shock on Laura's face was almost cinematic, her confident smirk collapsing into wide-eyed disbelief. For once, she had no quick comeback. And the silence that followed. It wasn't awkward anymore. It was electric. For a moment, the room stood frozen. The weight of my words lingered, thicker than the air we breathed. Laura's wine glass trembled in her hand before she set it down, her knuckles pale against the stem. Our friends shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to laugh, speak, or just sit in stunned silence. I didn't look away. For years, I had allowed her sharp remarks to cut into me quietly, convincing myself they were harmless jokes. But as I held her gaze, I realized this was the first time I had ever stood my ground without apology. I wasn't cruel, I wasn't loud, but I was clear. And in that clarity, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Dignity. Laura finally broke the silence. "Excuse me," she snapped, trying to recover her footing, her voice pitched higher than usual. She glanced around the table, searching for an ally, but all she found were uneasy faces staring back at her. The laughter she had expected never came. "You heard me," I said, my voice steady. "I've spent years taking your public jabs as if they were nothing, brushing them off while you made a fool of me in front of others. Tonight, you showed everyone exactly how little you value me. And I'm done pretending it doesn't matter." A nervous cough broke the tension, but no one dared to interrupt. Laura's cheeks flushed red, anger and embarrassment warring inside her. "It was just a joke," she stammered. "Then take this as a joke too," I replied coldly. "But maybe, just maybe, you'll think twice before you try to humiliate me again." The silence that followed was different now. It wasn't heavy with tension. It was filled with realization. Everyone had seen the dynamic for what it was. And for once, Laura had been the one left exposed. When we finally left that night, the car ride was quiet. No apologies, no explanations, just silence. For me, it was liberating. She had crossed a line in front of our friends, and I had drawn one of my own. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the butt of the joke. I felt like a man who had finally reclaimed his voice. And from the look in Laura's eyes, I knew she'd never forget the night her joke backfired and left everyone in shock.